In today's episode, we're talking about the concept that when you're stressed for longer than 7 minutes, your IQ actually drops by 50%. That means you're essentially running your business with the emotional and cognitive capacity of a 7-year-old. You're emotional, argumentative, you forget things, you make reactive and impulsive decisions. And the worst part, most people don't even realize it's actually happening. So today we're unpacking what that looks like in the real life and in business and what you can do to shift it. We'll talk about how stress shows up in the day-to-day behaviors, what it costs you both in your business and your personal life, and how to build that kind of baseline that keeps you grounded even when things feel chaotic. And I couldn't think of a better guest to talk about this with than Kaz Amos, a registered psychologist who's helped countless professionals, business owners, including myself, understand stress, move through burnout, and build emotional resilience. Kaz has over 2 decades of experience blending clinical insight, entrepreneurial grit, and heart-centered leadership. And the way she intersects psychology and business, absolutely no nonsense, exactly what we need for our conversation today. It really is my honor to have Kaz, you as my first guest on this podcast. Welcome to Performance Starts Within.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy to have you here because I've been talking about doing this with you for, I think, a good 10 years.
It's a long time, isn't it?
It is such a long time, and every time I get there, I feel like I get a bit nervous and I don't do it, or the reality kicks in of coming on a podcast and being put in front of a camera and an audio as well. So I'm really excited that we actually finally get to be here in studio together.
We're doing the thing that's pressing our buttons and doing it anyway.
Yes.
Yes.
And what I kind of wanted to talk about first was how we first met. And I find it as a really, really funny story and perfect for what we're talking about today, because I'm not sure how much you remember, but it was kind of an intervention.
It was an intervention of sorts, yeah.
So back when I was working as a police officer, I had the pleasure of meeting Kaz not by choice. It was...
So you said pleasure. No.
I don't think it was a pleasure on the day, but it was a situation where obviously I wasn't coping with some of the things I was seeing in the police, and I was very, very stressed and not looking after myself. And so came up to visit mum, and one day she thought she'd take me for coffee, and coffee turned out to be your doorstep. And she left me there for an hour with you. And I remember sitting there, I think I had my arms crossed and I was barely saying anything to you, 2-word sentences. But that was the first time that you kind of opened things up for me.
Wow. I don't remember it in that way, but I do remember you being there and also not knowing that that's where you were going to be. And you went with it anyway. I guess you must have known something needed to be different or something needed to change in order to be able to be there even for an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's moments like that that you need to brush the surface as well. And often it's in that unaware that we need it the most.
That like part where you don't know that that's what you need, but then you get there and you go, oh, this is what I needed. Like that.
Yeah. And it kind of ties into what we're talking about today, which is when we're stressed for longer than 7 minutes, our IQ drops by 50%. And so essentially we're operating business, parenting, doing everyday life as if we've got the emotional capacity and cognitive as a 7-year-old. And I thought how fitting we could talk about this with you, about this topic, because I was so stressed, chronically stressed all the time, which is why I ended up in your office.
Do you think you looked like a 7-year-old?
Right.
Like you felt like, no, like you felt like a 7-year-old in that when you was plonked on that seat, you know, left there by your mum and functioning at that capacity, but not even knowing that that's the capacity that you're at?
No, I don't think I thought I was a 7-year-old. I think I thought there was a problem, but I couldn't figure out what it was.
But the mental capacity with the stress leaving you there, like you didn't know that.
Some shadow work coming here.
This is not therapy. But yeah, like when you think about that mental capacity that you have in a moment like that, when you're deeply in stress and how it affects the capacity of your ability to think and make decisions, you weren't in a place then to be able to make those decisions with the knowledge of a fully fledged functioning adult because of the stress. And so it inhibits your decision making, it inhibits your ability to control situations or to feel safe in situations, because a 7-year-old still needs their guidance from an adult to help them regulate their nervous system in situations, They need that there. So yeah, maybe
Interesting.
upon reflection that, maybe that thing applies across the board, not just in business, but in stressful situations in life too.
So why should we, like, if we're operating in so many different circumstances as a 7-year-old, why should we not be operating like that?
Well, do when you can get ChatGPT or an AI to make a baby face and speak with an adult voice? That's what I imagine when I imagine this principle at work.
I remember watching one that they do with Friends, with the Friends characters, where they do the baby faces. Have you seen that? Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And so thinking about, if I'm running a business or if I'm running my life, picturing myself as my child self, that looks a bit odd, and it's like a real what's the word? It's that like not dissociation, but almost like a disconnection between who I really am and who I think I am in that moment.
Mm.
So yeah, to that point of like, how well can I do it? Not that great when I picture it through that lens.
And so I'm imagining in my head because I have a 2-year-old. He's not quite 7, but I have a 2-year-old, and imagining him operating my life
Yeah,
and making decisions and how detrimental that could be. Like, what are some of the things how does that even come out? What are some of the signs someone may be operating at that level?
yeah. My first thing that comes to mind is self-do it. I don't need any help. Like little people are flexing their independence, 2-year-olds to 3-year-olds. That's one of their favorite things to say. It's me. I'll do it. No, don't need you. No to mum, no to dad, no to grandparents. I'll do it. And so, there's a fierce independence that when we're guiding little people, that's what we're guiding, and we're trying to, I suppose, hone that and teach them how to use that. But if we're trying to do our life in a way that's self-do it, well, we're not built to do things on our own. Our brains don't function very well in isolation. They function well with connection, supportive connection. And it would be, such a limitation to not be able to engage support of others when you're doing hard things.
So interesting. And now I'm thinking about how many high performers out there confusing high performance with chronic stress instead.
Yeah.
They're not asking for help or saying no to help.
And because there's that belief that I must do it. And I think it's a little bit ingrained in our culture of the individual and achievement, personal achievement. But also any great performer will say they have a team that helped them to get there. And they had people provide feedback. They had people guide them along the way, mentors, family, friends that helped them to get there. It's usually not a one and done thing for grown-ups in performance to say, yeah, I did it by myself.
So interesting.
Unless you're Snoop Dogg and you give that speech that I just want to thank me. Has it seen that one?
Yes.
That might be the exception to the rule.
Interesting. Because, I remember back to being in your office and hyper independent. Did not want any help.
Yeah.
I could do it on my own. I'm fine. The whole fine facade. What are some of the other things that you would have noticed from other people that you've had in your experience that might be suffering at that moment?
Yeah, I would think that would fall into the category of shutdown. And from a neurological perspective, we'd be looking at the brain being in a fear state. And if it's in a fear state, then it's going to want to do the fight, flight, freeze thing, or fawn, or any of the other F words that come up in that moment. And a freeze state is that state of withdrawal, is that I can do it alone. Whereas the fight, I'm ready to punch on, or the flight, I need to run away. So identifying where you're at, first step. Oh, I'm here. I don't want anyone's help. How helpful is that? Or I feel like I want to fight everything. How helpful is that? Is that going to get me what I need? Because I think there's a difference between pushing through in order to achieve a goal versus pushing through driven by fear. Does that make sense from a performance perspective?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the more we push through, the more resistance we tend to feel as well, because we're not addressing the inner stories or the inner things that are happening. And
No, we're missing the fear. Why am I so driven? Am I running away from something rather than running towards something? Maybe I am. I could be.
so how do we get to that awareness to know, one, we're in that stressful moment, but then how do we know when we're in it to get out of it?
It's sometimes, I suppose, in practice as a psychologist, I see people might run into the same brick walls over and over again. So there's a repetitive nature to the behavior, which is, I only know how to do it this way. And when that becomes dysfunctional or maladaptive, then we need to find a different way to do the thing. So I think in many, with many clients, what I see is I've been doing it this way and I don't know how to do it any other way. And that might be, how do I have a hard conversation with my boss? Or how do I address my employees? Or how do I work with my colleagues? Because I've got something I want to say, but I don't know how to say it in a way that's not either submissive, aggressive, and driven by fear. So how do I say it in a way that feels kind, that feels compassionate, human, but comes from a genuine perspective of love, really, because, we operate in fear or love, and they don't know how to do that. So often the questions in therapy are around, how do I ask those questions without being a total asshole or without being a real bitch? And because that's identifying, oh, I'm operating from a fear perspective. And that's some of the things that we discuss in therapy is what it might sound like to have a hard conversation with a different opening as opposed to the same old, which just gets me the same thing I've always gotten.
Interesting. And it's like that old concept of, doing the same thing over and over again, it's not going to get the same result. And so the more we continue to just do the same habits, actions, behaviors to get the result and it's still not getting the result, there's generally a problem. There's a break in the chain somewhere. And in theory, I feel like this has come up in so many different spaces in my journey, from when we first met in policing to becoming a solo mum, on especially that hyper independence, that I can do it all because that's what I've seen or what I've heard from other people or what I believed that I had to do it that way. And it's taken a long time to kind of start to let go, to go, you know what? We are not meant to do it by ourselves. We're meant to have a village, and sometimes the village looks different to people. Sometimes it's resource, it's daycare.
And
Um,
outsourcing.
oh, so helpful. I
My
got a cleaner
goodness.
coming in every 2 weeks, and every Thursday when he leaves, oh my God, it's like I've just, won the lotto. It's amazing.
I was at a Hunter Business Women's Network presentation a few months ago, and it was all about outsourcing in order to, again, gain resources so that you can use your own resources for other things in life, business, family, whatever. And this presenter said, you could ask your cleaner to do more. And like, whether it's Tourette's or not, I yelled out, this is my come to Jesus moment. This is why I'm here. And honestly, I went to my cleaner who has been like supporting me and my family, who have been in business for 20 years. But so she's been there the whole way, coming every fortnight, bathrooms, floors, kitchen, basics. And I said to her, would you mind staying an extra hour every week or every fortnight if we could, of course, obviously pay for that, but can you do some extra things that I just cannot get to now? She said, yeah, okay. And I cried. I'm so embarrassed to say that I cried. She goes, why are you crying? I said, I didn't know that I could ask for help, but you're helping me so much. And so things have been done like so simple. The microwave's been cleaned out. The the handrail on the stairs has been cleaned. The windows have been and I look at those things on the daily, as I'm walking out my front door to go to work and think, I'm never going to get to them, never going to get to them. Oh, I'm such a shit housekeeper and I've still got to go to work. And, so there's a little mental battle in that, is that I turn that thing I can't get to into something that becomes self-defeating. And then I don't ask for help. I sit in the self-defeat and then I do it again and again, rather than doing a really simple thing like, hey, would you mind staying an extra hour once a fortnight and helping me out with these things? What a relief. It's such a basic, simple thing, but it has helped me so much. The outsourcing.
And I feel that when I came home last week, he made my bed. And I was like, oh, because I don't make my bed every day. And just purely because I'm getting out of the house and trying to get a 2-year-old to daycare. And I've definitely learned exactly what you're saying. Outsourcing has reduced so much clutter in my brain. All the tabs that are always open, one of them was cleaning and having to think about, oh my God, I've got a 2-year-old, it can get messy, and just trying to keep things tidy makes such a difference. I bought a Thermomix actually not too long ago for the same purpose, because cooking makes me stressed. I
Right.
never learnt how to do it properly in a way that I felt comfortable that it was good.
Yeah.
And I always judge myself on that. And so I wouldn't cook because I was judging.
Yeah.
Bought a Thermomix, I can cook and I enjoy it. And all of a sudden the fridge stocked full of stuff that
It breaks the stress.
and it took the stress away,
Right.
especially with a 2-year-old that doesn't eat everything. Getting to Pilates, same thing. I have a reformer at home now because the stress of all the guilt of not being able to go, I accepted the fact that I'm not able to be able to go all the time. And so I created space to have that as something in there, and moving the body is so important for reducing that stress. And so I think what you were saying absolutely hits it on the head, because if we're able to reduce the clutter that we have and all the tabs that we have open, then we're able to come back to a really good baseline and make better decisions.
That's right, because you're talking about a brain working under stress and trying to perform under stress. What that does when there's too much of that stress, that just spikes all the fear centers in the brain and the nervous system, which disengages the frontal lobe decision making, the committee who's sitting there making the right choices along the way for business and life, disengage. So when we move out of that fear space into our frontal lobes, then we can make better decisions. But we need to reduce the stress. And for some of us, that people have more capacity than others. So there is such a thing called eustress, and I think it's I'm not even going to guess who it is. Kristen Neff, who talks about eustress, EU stress, which is just enough stress, just enough pressure to manage, which, from a brain perspective, is enough action potential to send neurotransmitters from one neuron to the next. If you don't have enough, you lack motivation, feel down, and then turn that upon yourself, self-defeating, and again, you're kind of back in the ditch then. So working out personally what your appropriate level of stress is, what's over your capacity, what's under.
It's almost like a cycle that we can almost get lost in a lot of the time. So if we're not careful of, it can kind of creep up on us.
Well, because isn't there a temptation in our culture to overperform and crow about it?
Yeah, like a badge that I'm so stressed, but I'm high performing and high functioning.
Yeah, look at me go. But my relationship sucks. I can't have a conversation with my kids. I can't cook a good meal. Yeah, because I've got too much on. And then I feel bad about myself. But look, I'm making loads of money. I'm living in this and I'm doing that. It's a little bit out of whack. And I think probably conversations like this help us to draw attention to, maybe we decide what's really important and how much we need of it, as opposed to making as much as we can first and then going, oh, I'm dying here, I'm struggling, and not functioning very well, and then having to rebuild it all again. Is there a different way that we can look at this, where we start paying attention to that stress before it becomes too much?
And it's having that awareness to be able to do that as well.
Yeah. Even in this, like in my new role, I work 3 days. This week, I've been asked to work an extra day, stepping in for a colleague, and next week as well. I was nervous as all get out when I went to work yesterday because I was like, "Oh, this is more people than I'm usually seeing, and I've got all these new stories." And I was shaky. "Oh, I've got to find somewhere to park because I haven't worked at this office before." Sounds ridiculous, but it's a little bit of a sign. It's like, yeah, it's outside my normal. I can do it for a couple of days. Do I want to do it like this all the time? No, I don't. I don't. The money's there if I want it. That's not an issue. The clients are there if I want it. That's not the issue. Can I cope? That's what is the priority. Because if I can cope, I can show up for them. I can show up for myself, show up for my family. That's enough. And I'm
enjoy
okay
the
with that.
process too.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I've been through the business of working hard until I have nothing left. And I don't know, it could be a midlife thing, I don't know. But I don't have the energy or the care to do it anymore in the same way.
I don't know if I'd call it midlife. I'd call it we've done a bit of work. Because I've gone through that as well. I'm going to say that we've did the work.
Yeah.
Because I went on the same journey, same thing of, working and parenting and doing everything. And I didn't know what baseline was. I didn't know what it meant to be at peace, to be able to, I didn't think you could function in a performance way if I was at that baseline level, because baseline to me felt like I was lazy.
Oh, so like that's your language for it. Yeah. Instead of okay.
Yeah. And now I take a day. If I'm sick, I take a day. And I think teaching people to be able to look inwards and find what is it that they want? How are they feeling? Is that actually going to be good for business, good for their family, good for their life? Or is it actually going to make things really messy?
I think like in contrast to me and how I'm choosing to do it now. So my husband and I have owned a commercial air conditioning company for 20 years. We sold that business 2 years ago. And so my husband's right at the end of the seeing out that contract to the fullest in October. So he literally has 12 weeks to go of his working career as he knew it in that field. We have been through this journey together. We started it from scratch, a laptop, one truck. Him and I learned how to do bookwork. He went and did the trade stuff. And we kept that business going for 10 years like that. We added staff, we had employees, and then replaced me. So I went back to my line of work. But what he has endured, I've seen him on the floor, unable to get up. I've seen him so stressed that the simple sound of his phone ringing, the ringtone itself, was enough to set off a who's calling me now? Who wants something from me now? And so this constant sense in business, I have to show up for everybody all the time at their demands. Like that's a 24/7 nervous system response. How do you not get exhausted from that? And what I've witnessed is you do get exhausted from that. So when it came time that somebody knocked on the door and said, "Hey, are you guys interested in selling your business?" We were like, "Let's talk and let's talk now." Because, my husband's like, "I'm so ready and I'm so tired. I'm so tired." So, like, is there's almost like an all and nothing model in that. And lots of people, talking about like, how do you identify the signs? I picture like a seesaw, has this. The fulcrum's in the middle of the seesaw. And when we find ourselves living at either end, on or off, all or nothing, we're too far. We're too far out. So to recognize, I have no energy or I have all of the energy, that's going to peter out. How do I bring it back here again? And am I more efficient if I move closer to the center and kind of straddle that fulcrum and balance my way through it. And if you're in my office, I'd be drawing this on a, piece of paper with some textures, and then I draw a little person straddling it and then surfing. And I say, and this is how you surf, the waves of emotion, the waves of what life offers. You move either side of the fulcrum and you work it that way. You cannot move to perfection. Doesn't exist. Too hard. So straddle it. Sometimes there's going to be ups and downs. And you know what? Sometimes it's going to go like that. That's okay. It's easier to manage when you're kind of a bit either side. And being flexible, but having some stability in that. That makes sense? So
It does.
spotting that, where am I at in my performance? Yeah.
I remember coming home with lots of papers from your drawings.
People say, oh, this is on my fridge or this is in my car.
Yeah.
I know. I can't help it.
Yeah. But it does make sense. And I think, how would you, the concept makes sense to bring you back into the middle, but how do you even do that if you don't know? Like, what's some of the small things you could do to start bringing that awareness and bring them back in?
To go back to our business, we consulted a business coach because that level of exhaustion that I saw in my husband was not sustainable. It was burnout. So another great word for how that feels at one end of the thing is I feel burnt out. And noticing that slide into burnout before you get there. But lots of people don't realise this before they get there. And I suspect that burnout is a type of trauma. The thing that says I just don't have the energy to get up anymore. And traumas are big, traumas are small. It doesn't matter. Whether you call it burnout or trauma, it's the same thing. It's a nervous system that's had enough, that can't regenerate the energy anymore. So you'll know it because you'll feel it. You'll feel it coming. You'll say things like, I don't have the energy for this today. If that phone rings one more fucking time. My husband changed his ringtone like 3 times.
So it was avoiding.
Yeah, I know. And we walked in somewhere the other day and the same ringtone played and he goes, oh my God, remember that? See, that's a psychological marker of a trauma response. Oh, remember what that did? Oh. So recognizing those signs along the way. Physical signs, raised heart rate, sick in the belly, flushed face, cold, sweaty palms, dry mouth, all of those physical signals that say, I'm trying to get back in balance here. I'm trying to get back in balance here because something is out of whack.
And then the reactions that follow as well. I've seen when I was working in sales teams, especially with some of my team members that were getting a bit stressed, they often would get a bit reactive or defensive or, do make small mistakes that they would never make normally. And so they were really good signs practically to see, okay, we need to kind of pull back and work out how do we bring you down back to baseline? Because if we continue, we're just going to continue making the same mistakes, same problems, and you're not going to enjoy the process as well. It's overloading.
And you can't reach your peak performance by doing that, like by continuously pushing up against that, especially when you get there and it's a brick wall. You can't push through it. So when, noticing the time, when's it time to talk to your employees or your customers and say, so this is where I'm at and it's, this is what it looks like. I'm going to move the date for when that is due. I'm going to get someone to get in touch with you and say, sorry, I can't make it for that. Can we make it the following week or a month later? Being flexible in that so that you're not holding yourself to something that is really going to break you down. And for what? For what?
An extra couple $100?
Extra couple $100, yeah, some credibility or some fancy, go easy. Go easy. Those things, they sometimes matter more in those moments of push than they do when you're not in that moment. You know, when you step back and go, hang on a second, what's really important here? I'm thinking about you and like back then when we first met and you know, the role that you've held was really important to you. And holding on to that was really important. So it meant something, you know, to you that you'd achieved this. But it didn't mean anything about you as a person, if that makes sense. Like who you are, who your character is, how you show up. That's what we'll remember each other for. You know, not necessarily for all the job titles that we've held.
This is very true. And I did an exercise recently, something called the 100 list. I actually hosted an event last week, and we wrote down 100 things we're wanting to achieve over the next 10 years. And the reason this is relevant is because I realized through all of this, you know, policing, everything that I've kind of healed through with you, and also the 15 years of other,
So a lot of other
a
work.
lot of work
done,
that we've
right?
done,
Yeah.
from that person to now, I now get to enjoy the process. Whereas before I didn't feel like I was enjoying anything. And I've gone through waves in various circumstances, becoming a mum, rehashed the whole thing all over again because there was different problems that came up. And I feel like that happens in life and in business a lot because we will always be triggered by something and it's how we react to it. But it was really important to remind myself that when I am at my best, my best, I can show up as my best. I made more money than I ever had before because I was well rested, well fed, well surrounded by the people that I really wanted to be around me. And I'm also a better mum.
And what does it feel like in your nervous system? How do you notice that? Like, you know, great. That's a great therapy question. But in real life, how do you notice that? Well, I don't. It's the absence of symptoms.
Yeah, it's like good health. You
Yeah.
don't know good health until you don't have it.
Yeah.
And it's always that rock bottom for me that I noticed that I was trying to learn how do I catch it before full dysregulation. Whereas now it's almost coming to a place of gratitude to go, I get to watch my son ride his bike and go, this is the point, this feeling right here. And now I get to work with some amazing people and get to chat with people like yourself and we get to talk about some of these things because I really do think that people miss the point. And they could be in such a good position and still make a really good life and have such good income and do all the things they wanted to do and also still be well.
And a decent human being to other human beings. You know, I feel like that's like a very central thing to who I want to be. Because if I can do that for myself and we can share that, then, you know, we can share that beyond this space. We can share that with our families. We can share it with the people who look after us in our day-to-day. That ripple, I don't know where it goes, but I don't want it to just only stay with me and I'm the only person who gets to keep it. You know, I don't have to keep it. It's about sharing that.
Yeah.
And also with conversations like this, sharing it with anybody who wants to take it on board and start noticing in their own life, oh man, I'm stressed all the time.
Or someone else noticing first.
Oh, well, now that's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, how do we take that feedback?
They drop us off at your office, obviously.
God bless mothers.
She, she's always been there, which is really nice. And it's nice when someone else notices when you can't as well.
Yep. And before I had my first child, I went along to the baby classes, like the pre-birthing classes with my husband. And I remember the midwife who was doing the education, she said, to all the partners here, it will be you who notices postnatal depression. It'll be you who notices changes where the mother will highly likely not see that. And be mindful and supportive in how you look after your partner. It's not about pointing out failures, but about how you offer support in a moment like that. So for people listening too, they might be alongside somebody who they see, like me, seeing my husband just struggling. And then rather than point out, oh, look at you, you're struggling. Like, how can you be supportive in that? that's kind and gentle.
And not chastising and criticizing.
And not defending and all of those other behaviors that are driven by fear. But how can you be loving towards the people that you're with to help both of your performance, to help both of who you are? Because it's not about doing it all alone and getting to the top of the summit alone.
Isn't it such an
It's
interesting
fun
thing?
being rich alone either, I don't
No.
think.
I don't think so.
Not that I've experienced that to say that. And maybe
I definitely won't be rich alone. I'll be rich with some really good people, but manifesting. It's a really interesting concept to, I think, finish on, is that everything that we do, there's a reason. And it's about getting curious as to what's going on inside to help us understand that a little bit more, because then we can change some things. We
And
can
we
change
can-
that internal reality.
it is that in changing that internal reality, we can make up the reason. Maybe there is a reason for everything, but I also might make up that reason myself and give myself a reason to choose what I choose, how I do it. Maybe other people don't get to choose it for me.
That's true. That's really true. I have a question that I would love to ask you to finish today.
Yeah.
If you were getting to the end of your life and you had one last opportunity to speak to a room full of people, what is one piece of advice that you would give them?
I'll just go with the first thing that popped into my head, and it just sounds a little lame, but I'm going to go with it anyway. Be kind to yourself. Just be kind to yourself. Look after yourself so that you can share it. Not so that you can just keep it all, but so that you can share it, have capacity to start that ripple.
I love that. Thank you so, so much for joining me for an amazing, interesting, and I think we could chat for hours about some of these topics, but I'm so honored to have you here for my first podcast interview.
Well, thank
you
you
Kaz.
kindly.
That's it for today's episode. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe by hitting the follow on Spotify or tapping the little plus button on Apple Podcasts. You'll get each episode straight to your podcast app every Friday. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you in the next one.